Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. This is Dan with 60 Second Docs back for another live stream with you, special edition here on 420, as it turns out. So if you haven't seen this before, basically this came about, obviously with the way that things are going on in the world right now, we wanted to, kind of use this sheltering at home as an opportunity for you out there to get to know us as 60 Second Docs a little bit better. And this is, I think, our fifth or so installment. People have been really loving this, so we're continuing to do it. I have a very cool guest today. If you check out what we posted earlier today, it's the episode of this person right here, who is a distinguished guest. We have Chef Andrea Drummer. There she
Hi.
is. Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Oh my, yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. We were all like extremely pleased when you said you'd come on. You were our very first choice, and I think that people are gonna love to see what you do.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you guys were like one of the first persons to bring me on and to put the forefront of a broader audience. So it's very befitting that I'm here with you on this day, 420, in my first kind of major celebration. So I really appreciate that.
That's super cool to hear. Yeah, we try to get to stories first. I didn't totally realize that we had been among the first, so that's really cool. And it's our total pleasure to get you in front of our audience, which I know is pretty open-minded and pretty progressive and cool and like to think and think outside the box. So a little bit of a natural fit, and we'll continue that trend today here, getting to know you. And I understand you've got a little demonstration coming up, and why don't we get into it? I'd love to ask you a couple of things off the bat here, just to clear up what I don't totally know. So this is a dumb question, perhaps, um, but so cannabis and marijuana, these are the same thing, or these are slightly different?
Cannabis and marijuana are synonymous. It
Okay.
refers to the psychoactive part of the plant, of the
Okay.
cannabis, which is the THC. Not to be confused now, and that is the plant specifically. But then when you start extrapolating, and when we talk about hemp, we spoke about that briefly before. Hemp refers to a specific sativa strain of cannabis, which is primarily grown for industrialization to build, and but it's also CBD rich. So that is a specific strain versus the actual plant of cannabis, which is the active property of the plant. But then, of course, we get into the usage of it, which we know cannabis is broadly used now in this mainstream way that we're able to live and create and work in this industry, and to bring forth new ideas and create jobs for other people. Whereas marijuana was systemically used to demonize a particular group of people, which were Black and communities. And so it does, in some places, still have a negative connotation. But others don't feel as strongly about it. I think both need to be acknowledged and understand the dynamic of the words and the disparity of.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I guess people kind of forget that there is this storied past. When did you first start, realizing, that this was for you, and that there's a lot here, to work with in new ways?
For me, I started out as a patient specifically. I started working in the kitchen late. Let me just say that I was a woman of a particular age and didn't start as most chefs when I was in my teens or whatever that is.
Mm.
So it was a transition of careers, and in that, your body responds differently to all of this activity because working in the kitchen is quite brutal,
Yes.
and it's experiencing all of these different changes and aches and pains in my body, and had a bout with sciatica. I had tendon pains and just all sorts of things. And recommended all sorts of opioids, which has never been my thing. I remember, if I could share a story, when I was probably about 20 or so, I got into this freak accident and had to have oral surgery. And they gave me codeine or something. And I was thinking, it's a painkiller, it'll help me. And I was hallucinating. So from that one experience, I was like, that won't be my go-to.
Yeah.
And the next day I took all of those things and threw them down. So fast forward, when this was the same, here, take this. It's like, no. So I'd reconciled that I would have to figure out how to live with pain.
Yeah.
Like, and this was not like a regular, I hit my heel, or this was.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a little stack of afflictions there.
Oh, there were days that I was completely immobilized. Like I was laying on the floor for days and couldn't move.
Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah. So someone recommended cannabis, and wasn't a great proponent of it because I had been fed the Bill of Rights of it being the gateway drug and being bad for you. But by now, having transitioned to California, I was a lot more open-minded. So
Wait, how long ago was this?
I started in this industry in 2012. So
Okay.
around 2010. Yeah. And then
Awesome.
I
10 years.
bottle 2012.
That's wild. Okay, so it's 2010. You're like, all right, I'm gonna see what this is all about. And then, how quickly did you realize, like, wait, there's a lot to this that I can work with?
Very quickly, to the point because I didn't think of it still in that moment as a career course, right? Because I was, I had a great job that I loved and loved the people I was working with and loved what I was doing, in service. But it was immediate that my pain subsided. I don't know. Of course, we're still testing medically and all of these things. It's forever evolving. But for me, it worked to the point that you're not talking to a person who was consuming on a daily basis. It would be like once a month or twice a month, or where I could function and not live in this pain that I was in.
Well, that's unbelievable. And so then how long after that did you start realizing, like, wait, I can kind of combine, this new element of my life and, the thing that I'm most passionate about? When did that start?
That started 2012.
So walk us through that. Were you one day kind of going like, let me give this a shot, or how did it come about?
Well, when I first started consuming for my pain, it was by way of smoking. And so that was a little, I wouldn't say problematic, but it just wasn't my thing,
Yeah.
And so, I graduated culinary school, and then someone challenged me to create edibles. And I was like, okay, I'll try. But then as I started to learn.
I challenge you to get me match by end of day.
Exactly.
I challenge you to give me and my friends a batch of brownies. That's smart. That ingenuity.
I know. It's like, I think I was strict. But I did, and I created the butter, and the smell of it was so amazing to me, And again, I'm fresh out of culinary school, and I'm smelling this product, and I'm like, wow, this is.
What were the edibles? Were they cookies?
Yeah, or cookies and brownies.
Yeah.
I'm not a gal that prefers sweets. I love savory, and so smelling the product, and I created it from California Blue Dream. It was beckoning me to do something else with, other than this cookie brownie situation.
Yeah. And your friends agreed, I imagine, too.
Yeah. So
you gotta keep at this.
I made a bruschetta and like on the fly, and we sat and ate the bruschetta, and I was like, oh, this really works.
Oh man, bruschetta.
Yeah.
So there you go. This was the beginning. You're like, this is a very tasty bruschetta with.
That was the one. And so that started it all. And it was, I probably ate a little too much, but
the line. I think it was inevitable at some point in your experimentation. You'd be like, and there's the line. I've had too much.
Well, it got me to here, so maybe.
Yeah. No, it was all part of the process.
Right. So yeah, and there, like literally that day, we wrote out this plan on my chalkboard table to build this brand.
Really?
And I was skeptical, but then I started doing the research about how your body processes cannabis by way of eating, which is very different. And it was just all right up my alley. I mean, I prefer food over smoking again. So I was like, more people should have access to this and not just sweets. We should be able to consume the way that we eat on a day to day.
Yeah, right on. And I think that, I mean, obviously, like with the response you've gotten, tons of people agree. So who was it? So walk me through, like, this was you and the friends who received the bruschetta, or like who was the initial team where you said, aha, let's build this into a brand?
All best friends, and we were just kind of sitting around, and one of my friends was like, well, just try to make something, because everyone that came into my apartment, I was like, yo, smell this. This is
Yeah, good to meet you. Come to the kitchen.
and everyone would be like, oh, that smells good. And they, did you make product? And of course, the go-to was always a sweet or a dessert product. And I was like, nah, it wants to be something different. So my friend girl, she's like, well, do something. I was like, okay. So I had found some heirloom tomatoes and just different things and made the bruschetta. And she's like, you got to do something with this. You have to move forward. And I was like, I don't know if we can do this. She's like, shut up your face. She literally put her hand over my mouth. Like,
We've got a bunch of recipes. We're going to do this. So for those that are just joining us, this is 60 Second Docs Live with Chef Andrea Drummer of Los Angeles, who is a cannabis chef. If you want to check out the episode that 60 Second Docs did with her, it's posted on all our platforms as of this morning. It's an older episode, but we rebooted it for this special 420 edition. Okay, and so then let's go through a little bit more chronologically. So then you've got the idea, you've realized, like, I have something here, this is an effective product. At what point were you, putting this in front of customers and seeing, like, you've got something?
It went full throttle. We came up with the concept. We came up with the logo within a matter of a week. Then I did, like a focus group. I had about 10 friends come over and test the product to see how they felt, and kind of went through some trial and error, because I had to understand all of the things as it relates to dosing and microdosing, which
about that, yeah. That seems like a whole, sliding scale there.
Right. So I was learning all of these things in the process, and how to dose my own product, the butters and the things that I was creating.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through that process rather quickly, like maybe within 2 months. And within the third month, we did just a small, like, activation of a party of about 50. And it went over well. And about 2 months after that, we did a party with about 200 people. And that went over really well. But we just had to kind of find our footing and what we wanted to be and what we wanted to create. And so all of those things, there was a lot of trial and error. And at the time, no one was believing in this thing. Everyone still had this misconception of edibles being so terrifying. And,
That's interesting to me. So what do you think? Do you think it was just that, people felt like edibles, like this isn't viable, or it was still stigmatized, or what do you think the resistance was there?
Yeah, definitely still stigmatized, because historically, there was a very specific demographic of us consumers that created edibles.
Yeah,
Made
fair.
them very strong, right? And so there's always this fear. Anytime I would talk to someone about edibles and what I was doing, it was like, not for me.
Yeah, I guess that was a little bit of a tough sell. For those of you that haven't seen the episode or don't realize, Chef Andrea is super legitimate with her food. It's 5-star cuisine, really incredible food married with cannabis. So I guess that must be a little bit tough in the beginning, or maybe even an extent today, but where you're going like, no, no, just trust me. Like this isn't, like edibles, just, kind of crap. This is like really good stuff.
It was super tough. I think that at the time, I was one of the only chefs that was kind of in the forefront, and it's just like I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Uh, and there were still some chefs kind of in the shadows, like I would love to, but this doesn't come along with a Michelin star. This doesn't come along with the accolades that we desire coming into this industry to be that in our work.
And you were like one of the very first, correct?
Yeah, I was. Again, I'm sure that there are other people that were doing. I didn't invent edibles, right?
Right. But in terms of like visibility, in the industry, marrying fine dining and again, like, yeah, savory cuisine that's really good and tons of, expansive flavor profiles and all this, and also an edible. You were a pioneer there.
For sure. And I guess I kind of got to accept that term. It's interesting because
You don't have to say it, and I'll just call you a pioneer, and you can nod it.
like I'm doing this work because it is purposeful and it's meaningful to me. And I think that there is a need for it. And I think that we should all have access to the medicine that we see that benefits us in our own personal lives. So that was
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I totally agree, and I know our audience does too. So now let's talk a little bit about kind of the greater the evolution of this, I suppose, in terms of purpose. It wasn't just like let's all get lifted. It's that there is this greater purpose. Let's talk a little bit about kind of when you realized that your cuisine could be medicine, or did you know that from jump?
I knew it from jump. Again, my first time consuming, this pain subsided for me, and that was, I didn't have any, medical proof, or no one sat me down in a doctor's office, right? But I know that it worked for me, and then there was the understanding that here I had a job that I loved, and was doing work there, and then to understand that I'm being prescribed all of these opioids and the like. But if I choose to use cannabis as my alternative way of medicating, that my livelihood could be taken away from me.
Yeah.
It was daunting, especially in a state that has legalization, right? Just no use at the time solely. So it just didn't resonate for me. And so, circumstance, I think it was all divine, parted ways with that job and have been looked back since.
That's unbelievable. And so there came a time, it sounds like, where that job that you loved and all those people that you worked with that you loved, that you had to say goodbye to that. Is that right?
I did it, but I said hello to something that has been a life-altering experience for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, no, go ahead.
Well, I transitioned into culinary arts because I wanted to do something that feeds my soul and my belly.
Oh man, I mean that's like the gift of food is that you're getting more than just like physical nourishment. And in this case, I don't know. I haven't tasted your cooking, but I can't even imagine like there's got to be this other dimension to it. I mean,
just learning nuances of integrating cannabis with cuisine. And I think I was in perfect position, just being so in love with culinary school and all that I was learning, and being able to again integrate this component, and being so open. My palate was very open, and I was taking in all of the terpenes of the cannabis and excited about what that meant to the food and how to marry them perfectly. So all of that was exciting to me, and also of course the medicinal component. So it's been a good little ride.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the basics here. So what do you without giving away trade secrets, of course, but like, so do you roll up to or a particular strain of marijuana and say like, okay, this has the properties that I need for this dish, or how does that work?
Yeah, for the most part, when I started, it was solely based on senses, right? And then from that, I would do the research of what this particular strain would offer. But in smelling it, the approach was much like any other herb or any other food-based product, or that you go to the farmer's market and you find a fresh bunch of mint or rosemary or thyme, and you take it in visually, you smell it, you touch it, and decide how you want to enhance your food using that thing. And
Interesting.
that was the same approach for me in working with cannabis.
So how would you account for the like I don't know the other component, like what it'll do to your senses, or is that something where you're kind of like this is first going to pair with the dish and then it's just how does that work?
Well, I'm a little biased, and I'm going to try to keep it really as succinct and simple as possible and not talk over anyone's head. Um, I am a little biased because I am particular to the strain Blue Dream, which is a hybrid, a sativa dominant, and I like sativas. So depending on the situation, like if it were for, let's say, an event or a party, I would veer towards a sativa, which
Why
is
is that?
because it's uplifting.
Oh
Sativa,
yeah.
whereas indicas, you use indicas to to go to sleep or relax.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
So if it were for a patient who, because I had those as well, that I would do deliveries or have at home dinners for, I would do an indica based on their needs and their desires.
I see. Okay. And by special request only for the parties, the indica. Otherwise,
Um,
sativa.
I think everyone kind of, when I was doing pop-ups, people kind of knew what they were coming to have a great time, and so they were open.
I
Um,
remember seeing the footage from the video. I made that video. It's like everybody there was just clearly stoked to be there. There was no there was not one person in the crowd that had been like dragged along. Let's put it that way.
Not at all. But I've had some guests who were mild or not. They were novice or hadn't done much edibles at all. But were able to kind of turn them over, like
Yeah.
minds about it, which was really cool.
Do you feel like your food is used to like win people over with regard to like marijuana consumption? Are you?
Ultimately, it's not necessarily of me wanting to get you to come over to the side of edibles. It's really about the conversation of normalizing consumption.
Yeah.
And if we're able to do that, then we kind of get out of this zone of stigmatizing it. And
Yeah.
we're in these places. It's still we have this misconception about cannabis that all people will go to hell and or you know
That one there is.
we still have those beliefs. So I think it's about changing that, and then in turn we are able to impact law. And there are people with nonviolent crimes that are incarcerated for life for
Right.
reasons, right?
Yeah.
And that's insane that I'm out here, I get to do that, to do what I do, when they are the real pioneers.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately it's about impacting law.
Yeah, that's really well put and a good point, and one that I don't think people necessarily think of. Yeah, I think we definitely still have a ways to go with understanding, marijuana and kind of like the need for normalization, if you will. I mean, to say nothing of also like, yeah, the incarcerated, but there are so many people in pain that could benefit from this greatly. So it's really cool that you've been able to kind of advance the narrative there. But thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate that.
Should we do some cooking? Are you able to? Or do I have this right that we're going to be able to do a little demonstration?
I'm gonna do a little demonstration, and hope we kind of keep it in our wheelhouse where everyone could kind of do this at home.
Great. Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So should we get started?
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
I'm gonna move us.
For anybody just joining us, we're here with Chef Andrea Drummer of Los Angeles, California, who is a cannabis chef and a damn good one at that. We're really lucky to have her. You can see her episode posted across our social media platforms. I think just prior to this live link, if I've got that right. So we are going to see her cook something. I don't know what. This is a little surprise for us. She is, of course, sheltering in place with her ingredients, as we all are, staying safe. And I think we've got a baked potato there. Or is that? I don't know what that is.
So what I'm gonna do is papayanos.
Okay.
And so I was born in Hollywood, Florida. So from Hollywood to Hollywood.
Okay.
Fort Lauderdale. And one of the things that was very prevalent in South Florida was Caribbean culture. And so there, you had Jamaican culture where you had rice and peas and, stewed chicken and jerk chicken. And then we had, of course, the Haitian culture where you had poisson en sauce. And of course, we had Cuban culture, which was fast. And so I'm making a version of papayanos that's the kind of Cuban style, but I'm also making it vegan. So I'm going to kind of walk us through this. I'm not going to do all of the steps because, of course, we're on a time restraint. Can you see my?
I can see the stovetop. Yep, and then
that's what we want to get. We want to get all the good stuff.
Yeah, basically from your sleeves down is in frame, in the bottom of the pot.
So what you're going to do is take maybe like 4 to 5 pounds of potatoes, and you'll peel them and then cut them into like medallions, and then go ahead and drop those in a pot of water and boil them into their stock. Whatever.
That's a lot of potatoes. If I guess not. Potatoes are fairly heavy. 4 to 5 pounds sounds like we've got a couple portions coming up.
We have a couple, and the thing about this this particular dish is that it can be time consuming, but it's fun to do with your family, with your loved ones, even with the kids. They can get into it.
Yeah, kids love peeling potatoes and shooting the skins everywhere. I used to do that. You can express yourself as a rambunctious child, peeling.
Yeah. So do that. Boil these potatoes. Whatever you do, don't cook them like this, like I'm doing with the whole stuff. So we'll have that, and then while that's going, we'll get the filling done. Let me just plug in here.
You said cube those potatoes and what? Boil them?
Yes.
All right.
So they're not on boil. And then while that's being done, we'll get started with the filling. So this is the actual filling of the papayanos.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how critical is it that you have a chef's knife that you love?
For a chef, it's everything.
Is that about a 10?
That's it, 20. It's like you can't perform without the proper tools in any job.
How sharp do you keep your knife?
Extremely.
Yeah.
The most dangerous knife is a dull knife.
Oh.
Yeah, most people are afraid of sharp knives, but the danger is in having, because you're pushing down extra hard to get that chop, and that's when accidents happen and slips.
Already cringing. I don't know. I'm kind of scared of knives. We'll move on to the ingredients here.
Well, I try not to cut myself.
Yeah. That's good. So what'd you just put in there? Is that a little olive oil?
Olive oil. And then we're going to get some onions sweated. So we'll sweat these onions. I'll just put everything up to. And again, I'm going to walk through this. So I have all of this stuff prepped out for us. So we'll sweat these.
What does that mean?
That means to get them like translucent. So so you don't have them crunchy and raw. So
Got it.
that they're a little tender, a little classic.
That sounds nice.
And then after that, we're going to add a little bit of garlic as well.
Oh, it looks good.
Add in there. The smell of this is amazing. I don't
Are you
know.
using all that garlic?
I didn't use all of it, but you can go as heavy as you want. I always tell people don't necessarily go, especially if I'm giving a recipe. Don't
Yeah.
go, but those are yours. You have to eat it. I'm not there.
Right. That's good garlic advice too.
So the next thing we're going to do is add what we're using as the vegan option is jackfruit.
Oh, yeah, I had that. It was delicious. So jackfruit is like what, a cactus of sorts?
No, it's a really large fruit. It does come canned. It's a tropical fruit, if you will.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it comes in two variations. Either this is a version that's more raw, and so for savory applications. But there is a version that is sweet, and you can use it for sweet applications. So I take this and just break it up and get all of that goodness in there. And it's important to get it broken up and not in these massive chunks, right?
And that's what you're using as a meat substitute, I gather.
Yes. But we also have, so let's get that in there. Also have another component of this to add some flavor, which is some soy chorizo.
Oh.
So there are different brands. Some are a little more pungent than the others.
Yeah.
I tend to like mine a little milder, but again, go by your taste buds, unless of course you're inviting me to dinner.
Oh man, I just found myself, I'm really salivating, I just realized.
I really wish that you could smell this.
Me too. I haven't really eaten, and I mean, it looks really good. Soy chorizo sounds delicious, furthermore.
So then we're going to add some smoked paprika,
Okay.
a little bit of cumin,
Okay.
some garlic powder, granulated garlic. And then, again, get that much. So the key to this is you want to get those spices a little toasted. I can smell that aroma coming off. It's amazing.
Oh man.
You want to get that toasted because that kind of really brings out the flavor of the spice.
Yeah, there's no aroma over here on this one.
I apologize.
Anybody just joining us, this is Chef Andrea Drummer making us a really delicious looking
Vegan paprika.
It's a vegan. What was that word again?
Paprika's.
Paprika's.
So now we're going to add some diced tomato.
Okay.
And then also a little tomato product or tomato paste as you know.
Oh, both of those? That's interesting.
Well, because the tomato paste kind of gives it a thickening component.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you kind of want that because you'll be using this to stuff the potato with, right?
Does any tomato work, or is this heirloom, or what am I looking at here?
What I used is just a can of small diced tomato that's easily accessible. But what I prefer are San Marzano tomatoes, which you can find relatively easily as well.
Okay.
Now we're going to add some chopped olives.
I couldn't tell if that was marijuana. I'm gonna have a half a protein bar here. I'm dying. That looks so good.
And then the last thing you want to add to this you could either use currants or raisins. I prefer currants, but I have raisins today. That adds a little pop of sweetness and just adds a little extra complexity to the dish.
Is that a Caribbean thing there with the?
Yes, always have this juxtaposition of sweet and savory.
That's fabulous. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to put the raisins in there.
It's one of my favorites. So you can go ahead and deglaze this with water. I actually prefer wine, but it's up to you.
You're deglazing? What does that mean?
It means so all of those spices are kind of sitting at the bottom of that pan, and they need to come up and integrate into the rest of.
Oh, man. I feel like I'm learning a lot.
You see that? So there we have that. Of course.
For me, I'm doing Kirkland brand
So,
chocolate brownie protein bar. Pretty good.
add a little salt to that.
I wish I was there.
Right. All right. So we got that mixture. We're gonna let that cool and move on to the next thing.
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing is, and I've already prepped these things, so kind of no fuss, no fuss, and you guys can go at your own pace at home, of course.
Yeah. Do you ever set off the fire alarm while you're cooking?
No, I kind of got it down a little bit.
I just asked because I keep doing that. I think it's a temperature thing. I was wondering if you had any advice.
Because we get anxious and we want the food to cook. It's like, come on, I want to eat it. And usually it's a matter of temperature. So we have our potatoes. We got those good and mashed up, right?
Yep.
We season them with salt, and then we'll add some vegan cheese, shredded.
Mm.
All right.
Yep.
So get it good and mashed up. I want to show you the consistency where it's workable.
Oh, that looks really good. It's thick, huh? Mm.
It's pretty thick. You want to get it cooled down, but you want to keep it at a room temperature so you can work with the product.
Okay. Oh, room temp. Interesting.
Yeah, because once it gets cool, it does. Like if you put it in a fridge, it does another thing, and it's probably not as pliable, but it's all relative. The other thing that I added to this was egg replacer. And so that is going to replace the binding component. And so instead of using egg, if you were to do this in a more traditional way, you add the egg replacer so that it binds it and keeps it from going crazy once you fry it. Okay, next thing.
Yeah.
So we have our cooled product here.
Wait, what was that? That's from that's from your main pot?
That's from the first.
Okay.
So we have that, and
Yeah.
we're going to put the potato now and stuff it. You guys with me?
Yeah. When does the cookbook drop?
Well, I have one, but I'm also working on a second one, which should be out very shortly. And
You want to plug the first one?
the first one is called Cannabis Cuisine, and you can find that on Amazon, on Mango, Barnes and Noble. So
this is Chef Andrea Drummer, who is an unbelievable cannabis chef. We should go. We should all get her cookbook. Mother's Day is coming up. The whole thing.
Yeah, especially for your mom. So we've created like a well here with the potato, right? And you're going to take a bit of your mixture and put that right dead center.
Yep.
And then you're basically going to go ahead and cover that up. And if it doesn't cover completely, as we have here, just take a little potato and put it on top.
Right.
All good.
We didn't add the cannabis yet, did we?
No, but however, you can actually infuse this. It really is just a matter of how strong you want it. In fact, I'm sorry, you reminded me I did. This is what I would typically infuse. So I generally make my own products, my own things to infuse food with, but there are so many options nowadays that you don't have to go through that, the thing of infusing your own product at home. So there are different products, different options that you can use. And this is where I would absolutely go ahead and infuse this part of it.
Yeah.
What happens is you're not recooking the oil. So once it cools and you infuse it, then you're not reactivating or over cooking the cannabis.
Okay. So that's a risk you run, huh? Overcooking it, and then what? You're killing the effect.
Absolutely, and the efficacy of the cannabis.
Got it. That
So,
sounds like a delicate science.
so infuse the mixture, and we have a ball here, and you're gonna take this and roll it into some panko breadcrumbs.
Mm.
And so what you have, what I tend to do is I like to let them sit for about an hour, pop them in the fridge, let them sit because it's gonna form that skin with the egg replacer in there. And so again, that protects it from popping open in the fryer.
Ooh. Man, breadcrumbs make anything kind of more like home cooking.
You really think you did something when you have a breadcrumb. Okay, so almost home. Again, you can do like a great number of, you can do a sheet tray of these, pop them in the fridge, and then, they can last up to a good week or so. But just, throw them in the fryer,
Right.
have oil at a good temp of 350 to 365. And
Okay.
then you cook them until they're like golden brown and perfect. Nothing over, not too dark.
With 350, 365, that's good. Because then I think, what you're saying, the fryer or the oven?
The fryer.
The fryer.
Put in the skillet.
I went back to the oven because I think my alarm starts going off when I'm doing 400 or above. So I'm in the fryer this time. That's not going to be a problem.
Well, yeah, you can. I have just a small at-home deep fryer here. You can use that. You can also use a skillet and just bring your oil up to temp and just fry it that way. So you don't have to do anything fancy or too outlandish.
Uh-huh.
We have our finished product that I'm going to show you.
Okay.
How's that looking?
Looks great. Are you kidding? Oh man.
So I just put this on a bed to just, again, keep it like a little healthier. On a bed of
It's
some
pretty healthy.
kale, but you could use whatever you want. You could use greens. Callaloo was popular in South Florida. You could use chard. Spinach, of course, is a good go-to.
So you're adding a little crunch with the green too, huh?
Yes.
It's nice. Real nice. All right. So then what's next?
So then I just made a little a basic marinara with using the San Marzanos.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go ahead and top that off.
We can't quite see that.
I'm gonna get it up there for you.
Okay.
We'll finish these up with some toasted pine nuts.
Oh, there's another little crunch. Oh man.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I can.
And that's
Okay, and so then how much? So what's the marijuana content in that thing there?
so it depends. Again, these products that you'll find and these alternatives that you'll find out there makes it super easy because there's no guesswork in terms of infusing and dosing because it's already done for you. So all you need to do is measure out the proper amount to put in your mixture, and then also know the number of servings that you're putting into that you're stuffing the potato with.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds pretty important to keep track of.
Yeah, not gonna hurt you, and you will be better for it.
Serving, please. So, how does one? So, like, let's just say, my mom is watching this broadcast and is like, I do want this for Mother's Day, and I get it for Mother's Day, and like, so then how much? She's never done it before. So how much? How does she know the right dosage? This is all hypothetical.
I will say this: proper dosage in the state of California is 10 milligrams.
Okay.
That's a full dose.
Is that reasonable, or do you think that they overshot it?
For me, that's a lot, but it just depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And it also depends on the product because
Right.
you have specific strains that are CBD rich that will kind of level you off and balance out the psychoactive properties of the THC. You also have specific CBD strains that have a very minimal amount of THC, which you can use. And then some people like highly dosed product. So I would say safely, I've always said to microdose, start about between 2 and 5 milligrams.
Ah, I'm gonna jot that figure down.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it easy because you can have one of those, which is very filling, mind you. And it's easy to have a second one and throw caution to the wind. You don't have to, you're not concerned about having 10 milligrams in one sitting and then now I have the munchies. What am I going to do?
Right, which is its own hazard. It's funny though, because it's like you did make a really healthy dish, I guess, with the exception of like it being fried, but it didn't seem like the light crispy crust. I mean, that's a pretty healthy dish.
We have to look. We're all sheltered in place, and I think we all have the same concern of staying away from the refrigerator, right? And overspeaking. And so we have to come up with alternatives.
Yeah.
But also, again, you could do it traditionally. You could use ground beef. I've done it with a marinated pork, a mojo pork. You get just different. Even with instead of the jackfruit, you could also use like Impossible or just different crumbles. The meat alternatives.
Impossible meat is just phenomenal. I had that for the first time recently. I was just curious. I'd walked by it so many times in the grocery store, and holy smokes!
Yeah, it'll fool you. It's good.
Do you favor toward the I guess we call this synthetic meat? What do I call it? Replacement meat?
I at all costs, I really like to use live fruits and vegetables.
Yeah,
that's my preference. But of course, if I'm out and about and there's a great alternative on the menu, yeah, it's kind of like,
What's that?
Kind of like a cheat day for me to have like a really good meat alternative burger.
Oh man, that you're doing things right. If that's your cheat day, it's like that's good. By myself with like I had red vines last night. I don't know, they were in the house. A great product and not one that I necessarily recommend, but my cheat dish was worse than yours. All right, so I wanted to ask you a couple more questions here and kind of broaden this conversation a little bit. So what do you think is the next frontier here with cannabis and with cooking and like socially just kind of moving things forward?
Well, I think it's kind of like capturing lightning in a bottle right now because of all of the things that we're dealing with. Cannabis, the normalization of cannabis consumption was moving along quite nicely with the opening of the Cannabis Cafe here in West Hollywood, which I was partner and executive chef prior to.
That's the first of its kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is an unbelievable accomplishment. Let's talk more about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I kind of forgot that. Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean, everything is on stall, as with life all over the world, right? But there was a lot of momentum around that. And so I think it's important to kind of harness that energy that once we're mobile again and we're able to create and bring forth these different concepts and ideas, that the sky's the limit. We still have, a viable hospitality industry that people are being super creative as it relates to cannabis. There's all sorts of businesses that are being created. There's potential of jobs being created in every industry feasible. So if we can capitalize on that and continue this momentum, again, it really is not only creating this new industry, creating jobs, working at the cafe, we were called the first of its kind, but under the umbrella of, we were creating new industry everywhere, everything from the bud hosts, from how service was done, from how security is done. It's completely different than working a bar or so all of those things just to be able to create these different industries under the cannabis umbrella is magnificent and it's powerful. And if we continue the momentum, then we'll be in a good place.
I love that. I totally agree, and I think it's exciting, and I think it's really cool that you have personally, kind of advanced all this, and on the behalf of all the people who have benefited from it. Thank you for that. I want to ask you just before we move on. Yes, of course. How's security different at the Weed Cafe?
Yeah, you have to change your ideas. It's not, you know, at your typical bar or place where alcohol is served and consumed heavily. Your go-to is to just people that are not behaving poorly or not doing the right thing, they just get tossed out. So this crowd is very different. It's the engagement is softer, it's kinder. It's not the consumer that's coming to overconsume necessarily.
Yeah.
And you have to throw them out. This is really about communicating and dealing with this demographic of consumers in a different way. So their SOPs had to change. And so, I mean, the beauty of that now you have, the security team that we were using, they're the first of their kind as well. That they could say, we do this thing specifically and could cater to your needs for other cannabis entities that come online.
Well, that's fascinating. What do you think the people have in common that are coming to the Weed Cafe? And for those just joining, this is Chef Andrea Drummer, who is a cannabis chef in Los Angeles and a renegade and a great chef. So sorry, answer that question. What do you think people have in common that are coming to the cafe?
I think the commonality, of course, is consumption first, right? But just to have a comfortable space to consume and not feel judged, and just do the typical, let's meet up for brunch. And a lot of our guests weren't great consumers of alcohol. We had a lot of those.
Yeah.
And so they wanted a place where they could smoke and safely consume, and also, just this communal place where there's both cannabis consumption and food consumption. And I think that it's very important to the cannabis community at large, is that we're not hiding anymore, and we're not necessarily in our garages or, in places where, again, it's not normalized, that we can't just be free in how we choose to consume.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So how do you think the cannabis community is misunderstood?
Well, I mean, of course, we think that we're all sitting around all day, non-productive, and I say this, because I was one of those believers. That these were my beliefs that I had for many years, coming from the East Coast, and my first career was in nonprofit and working with young people, teaching that narrative. There is still that misconception that cannabis consumers are hippies, or they're lazy, or they're not productive. And my mind changed vastly when I moved to California to see, one, the difference of product here. I think that made a great difference. I think there's something to be said when you have the freedom to grow, and to grow naturally. And it's not in a clandestine way where you don't necessarily know what type of product that you're getting. And so that's why I think global legalization is imperative.
Do you think that's many years away, or a handful of years away, or what do you think?
I don't think so. When I first came into this industry, this was 2012, amongst us industry insiders, it was whispered that, it'll never happen. A cafe, a restaurant will never happen. Legalization other than medicinal will never happen. all of that is not true. And I had to not believe that. And I had to quiet those voices and move forward in what I was doing.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly seems to be moving with some significant momentum. I don't know off the top of my head, you might like how many, states to go there are, but it seems like states we never thought would, change their legislature are doing so way before it was anticipated.
Never would have thought Florida would have been one of those.
Yeah, Florida's a great example. When did Florida legalize, do you know?
I think it's probably been about 3 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, just to see that happen, it's just like, okay, Ohio has provisions now. So yeah, I think it's happening. I know we get into conversation of why it's happening, and the idea of it being for financial gain. For whatever reason it is happening, and if you'll always have different reasons, and everyone will always have what's important to them. It's happening, and so it's just a matter of how you're going to leave your imprint on the industry.
Yeah, that's well put. You're certainly leaving your imprint.
Thank you.
By the way, yeah. So we are going to wrap things up here in just a minute or two. We're running out of time, but I wanted to end with the lightning round.
Okay.
So if you're ready, I'm going to ask you 10 questions that are marijuana related, and we'll just see how you do. But they won't be that hard. I think you'll do just great. So number one, what does CBD stand for?
The big words. I don't. Come on.
I know this is it is a little bit of a curveball. I was just looking it up because I didn't know. But it's a cannabinoid.
Yes.
So,
Cannabinoid.
sorry, I didn't mean to stump you. I really didn't.
The short answer is.
Yeah. Okay, and then next is multiple choice. Number two, which of these food items is not a euphemism for cannabis? Broccoli, herb, bok choy, nuggets.
Wait, say that. What was the question again?
Which of these food items is not a euphemism for cannabis? Broccoli, herb, bok choy, nuggets.
Bok choy.
That's right. All right. So one of two. Moving on to number three. How much of a marijuana plant is THC? The cannabinoid responsible for the high, for those that don't know. A, 1%, B, 3%, C, 8%. Again, how much of a marijuana plant is THC? 1%, 3%, 8%.
Of just the plant at general?
Yeah.
That's a trick question because the bud that I get is different levels.
Okay.
And it's beyond that for sure.
I would be like, no, it's A, 1%, but you actually know so much more about this than I do that I'm actually just going to say, I don't know that we got this right, but we had A, 1%. I hope these aren't really hard. I didn't mean to make them hard. Number four, in what region was cannabis first smoked? A, Romania, B, Canada, C, Iceland, D, Puerto Rico.
That's a good question. What I don't know the answer to, but let's see. You said Iceland?
I had A, Romania, B, Canada, C, Iceland, D, Puerto Rico. In what region was cannabis first smoked?
That's debatable. I mean, it's an ancient herb. So, well, then you say smoked. Yeah, that's debatable. No?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it is debatable, but I think you were on the right track from what I have. It's an ancient herb.
Yes. And you said Canada. I wouldn't say Canada for sure.
Correct. And then I had Romania. I had Iceland. I had Puerto Rico.
I would say Romania.
Right. That's right. If we had applause soundtrack, maybe I'll get an applause soundtrack.
People may argue with that.
I know. I'm realizing that these are all. How many more of these are just like totally debatable? Okay. Let's see now. Number five. for first-time weed smokers, how long can cannabis remain in the system? A, 0 days. B, 1 day. C, 7 to 10 days. D, 41 days.
Um, I would say 41 days because when I first started in the industry, it was told to me 30 days. So I would go with 41. But there are T's and things.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess this is kind of a trick question. I didn't mean to trick you up. This is like once you've been smoking weed, it stays in your bloodstream longer. But for first-time weed smokers, the answer was C, just 7 to 10 days. Sorry for the trick questions. Okay.
Because I mean, we were just fearful of it all, you know. It's like, don't smoke weed; it's going to stay in your system forever, and you'll never get a job, and you'll.
I know exactly. I was told the same thing. It's like don't make friends with people that smoke weed. It'll get in your bloodstream, and you'll never get a job.
I was fearful to be around people that consumed.
Yeah, same. And you come home. I'd be like in high school. I'd be like my parents like smelling my clothes. I'm fine. I didn't do anything. Okay, and then number 6. Which of the following is not a real name for a strain of marijuana? A, Girl Scout cookies. B, Purple Monkey balls. C, Influenza OG. D, God's green gift.
Whatever one is it, it will be. So this too is a trick question.
Okay. All right. All right, and then we made these so hard, honestly. I didn't mean to do this. Number 10, true or false? Women hold more executive positions in the weed industry than in other sectors of the economy.
That's not.
All right. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Chef Andrea Drummer, thank you so much. Once again, what are the names of your cookbooks?
Cannabis cuisine, but pairings of a born-again chef. Because working with cannabis certainly changed my mind. And you can find that on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Mango Publishing.
And then that's very cool. I will get that. And then secondly, and then what's your other book? Or is that's not coming out yet?
It's coming soon.
Coming soon. All right, cool. We'll keep our eyes peeled for the follow-up. And yeah, I mean, from everybody out there that has benefited from you and the way you think and what you do, thanks a lot. And from us at 60 Second Docs, thank you so much. Happy 420 to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out.
All right, my pleasure. See you next time.